Hi there, Sandra here. I'm here to save you some money, I hope. Now, for those of you who have either cutting machines, I've got a Brother Scan and Cut, and this is what I've been using. Making your own stamps can be a bit easier than you thought. Maybe you've got a favourite pattern that you would like to do as a background stamp, then there may well be a reasonable alternative for you. Now, I've got here a piece of craft foam. The difference with this particular craft foam is that it has a self-adhesive backing on it. So I have done a leaf design here. You can see here's one I cut out earlier. So I've cut out a leaf design that I drew, and I drew it in Vectinator, by the way, which is an iPad app that I use. You can also use it on an Apple desktop. It's not a problem, but I prefer to draw using my iPad. Now, I've weeded out the bits that I didn't want using a sharp needle, and I now have my cutout. If you have a really delicate design, then I would suggest doing it a slightly different way without doing the self-adhesive version here. Now, the other thing I have is an offset of this design cut out from bookbinding plastic. This is, as you can see, transparent. Now, I gave this a very generous offset. You don't have to, you could cut it the same size. And there I basically have a stamp. Just want to get rid of a little bit on the edges here. The self-adhesive foam is harder to cut cleanly because the adhesive is so strong. It wants to keep items attached to it, and obviously what you're trying to do is detach it. But here I have a stamp. I've got a couple of little bits possibly to clean up on the inside, but they're not going to affect the way that this would stamp. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that's all very well and good, but how are you going to stamp with that? It's actually very easy. You get some tack it over and over. Now, this is a glue, and that will dry sticky. So you can spread it over the back. You can still see your stamp, so no problem. And you allow that to dry. And when it's dried, you can use that on a stamp block in exactly the same way as you would use any kind of stamp that you buy. You might think, well, you know, is it worthwhile doing it? Well, it depends on what you want to do. If you have a design that you want to do, now for example, a leaf. If you were buying a leaf stamp, then you'd get it in one size. If you're making your own, you can do it in whatever size you so wish. You can also do very large background stamps, which generally cost a lot of money to buy. You attach that to your stamp block and then use it to stamp. You can put it in a stamp positioner and use it whatever you so wish. Really, it doesn't matter. If you don't want to use the self-adhesive stuff, you can simply just do it out of normal foam, normal craft foam, perfectly fine, and use the tack it over and over to stick it to this, or use a permanent glue to stick it to the plastic. Whoops. Now, because this was self-adhesive, I didn't have to put any sticky stuff on here, and that's fine. It just saves an extra step. Okay, put it on here. Now, these are water-based inks, so these are not the best stamping inks for a very solid print in one go, but you'll get the idea. Like so. And I'm just going to use my pressure thing here, try and make sure I get a reasonable impression. Well, that's not bad, is it? That's even better than I thought it would come out. So there we have it, your own homemade stamp. You can clean it off in the same way that you clean off your stamps normally. And if you're wondering about this thing, it's just an empty tin. Well, it's not a tin, actually it's plastic, but you get the idea. And I simply glued a piece of craft foam on the top of it because this is what I would use instead of one of those expensive gizmos to get even pressure on your stamping. This method is also very useful if you want to make a sentiment, a large sentiment, that maybe you're not going to use that often anyway. You don't necessarily want to buy a stamp of the same design, or maybe you do, but you just can't afford to buy them because, again, sentiment stamps, large ones, tend to be quite pricey. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Take care now.